Risk appetite. Everybody in risk management is talking about it, and we should be. It is an important element in your organization strategy. Did you know that more than 50% of organizations have not properly formulated their risk appetite? Well, it's time to change that. So, what exactly is risk appetite? Risk appetite is the amount of risk that an organization is willing to take to meet their strategic objectives on the basis of risk-return trade-offs for one or more desired and expected outcomes. Sounds complicated, right? Think of risk appetite as the amount of risk that an organization willingly bet for rewards. Now, when we talk about risk management, there are 4 levels that we should look at. First, risk appetite, the amount of risk an organization is willing to accept. Second, risk tolerance, the maximum amount of risk an organization is willing to tolerate. Third, risk capacity, the maximum level of risk an organization can actually bear. And lastly, risk universe, all potential risks of the organization. Today, we are going to focus on risk appetite. We divide risk appetite into 2 different aspects: risk appetite for individual investors, risk appetite for corporate. Now let's begin with risk appetite for individual investors. So, the big question that comes after knowing what is risk appetite is how can we know our own risk appetite level? How much of the risk that are willing to take in any kind of investment? Well, in the next section, we will guide you through some of the major factors that contribute to your risk appetite. In order to assess and measure risk appetite level of any person, we have to consider 7 factors, which includes: first, income. If your income is high enough, you will not mind taking risky investment decisions. Second, expense. Even though you have high income, but if you have high expense and low disposable income, you could be refrained from taking high risk. Third, financial responsibility, children's education, and mortgage payment. Fourth, age. Risk appetite generally declines with age. Young investor has more working years until they retire. They can take on some more risk. Fifth, personal goals. If you are far away from meeting your financial goal in terms of number of years, you can afford to take on more risk. Sixth, knowledge and experience. If you have earned high return in the past, you are willing to take on more risk. 7. Health insurance. If you not cover the health insurance policy to take on your expense, you cannot afford to take on high risk. Next, to understand more about risk appetite, we can also using the behavioral economics. In this case, the utility theory. In diminishing marginal utility, the satisfaction you get for receiving the same thing twice will not be the same as the first one. However, in terms of loss, there's an increasing in marginal disutility of loss. For instance, a $10 million loss is more than twice as painful as a $5 million loss, meaning that the second $5 million loss hurts worse than the first $5 million. And this is the meaning of risk aversion for investors. Once we know more about our own risk appetite level, we can select and decide what we should invest in. For low risk appetite investors, we should look into government issued bonds, fixed bank deposits, endowment and annuity products, and also money market and liquid funds. For medium risk appetite, we should look into corporate bonds, balance funds, debt funds, and also real estate. And for high risk appetite investors, we should look into direct equity trading, equity and growth funds, sectoral funds, and also lastly forex, commodity, and derivative tradings. Now let's move on to the corporate side of risk appetite. We will be utilizing the top-down approach to help define risk appetite for corporate. It can be used to articulate risk appetite through a board of executives as well as external stakeholders. The top-down approach will begin with risk appetite, risk capacity, drill down to target risk profile and actual risk profile. The top-down approach of risk appetite leads into an assessment of a designed risk profile and an action plan to achieve it. The top-down approach works better than a detailed bottom-up approach. The reason is that it is the only way to bring in the view of external stakeholders and to create a proactive statement of what management believes its risk appetite should be. However, the bottom-up approach tends to endorse the status quo and the existing risk profile. The result is passive description of risk appetite today rather than the proactive view. Another benefit of top-down approach is the cohesive understanding of risk appetite among management seniors. Looking into the decision-making process regarding risk appetite for corporate, there are two separate parties that are related to each other: board of directors and management team. As for the board of directors, they should set and approve the overall risk appetite that align with stakeholder expectations. They should approve capital plan and ensure appropriate risk governance. And as for the management team, they should develop business strategy, determine overall economic and capital need, develop and execute strategies consistent with the board mandate on risk taking. After we have formulated our strategy related to our risk appetite level, we should go to the stress testing process according to this diagram. Now, with all this theory and concept in mind, a really simple question lies: how can we be good at risk appetite for a company? First, we should have a strong independent risk function, a sponsor at the executive level, a board that is prepared to lead, a board executive who can articulate and recognize financial and non-financial risks, a robust process to aggregate risk, a well-established methodology to produce risk-adjusted metrics, a good capacity for change management, a culture within organization that enables the free flow of information, and lastly, a culture that views risk consideration to the rest of organization. However, risk appetite can actually be manipulated due to different situations and can be tested in this experiment. 3 different versions of KYC risk assessment question has been created. All participants review a form of showing potential outcomes for 4 portfolios. The result shows that the proportion of participants choosing the 2 middle portfolios varied based on whether the extreme low risk or extreme high risk options were presented in the choice set. They also create the same set of portfolio from low risk choice set. Each choice was framed using the different variations. The participants were more risk averse when portfolio returns were presented as dollar gain loss or percentage gain loss rather than the market value. This experiment shows that investors can be manipulated into different risk appetite than their actual risk appetite level. And that will be all for today. We hope that you understand risk appetite a little bit more. Thank you for watching.